It is I, Tantus Naraban Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on the lands, legends, planes, and planeswalkers of Magic the Gathering, where I take each of these pieces of lore, give you some basic information and history about them, and help you understand a little bit more of the world settings of Magic the Gathering, as they've established it through both cards and other sources. So let's dive in today to a new legend. An important one set during the invasion block and some of the time periods before it. Sisay, captain of the Weatherlight. Now Sisay, of course, was a human born in the country of Zalthor on the continent of Jamora, of course, on the plane of Dominaria. She and her family were actually members of Urza's bloodline project, trying to basically breed, in a way, the ultimate user, the ultimate owner of the legacy, the powerful sets of artifacts being developed in order to defeat the Phyrexians and Yawgmoth. She herself and her family, well, they were charged with the most important part of the legacy. They were in charge of the skyship Weatherlight. Now the Phyrexians learned this, and of course sent a number of agents to attack her home village. Her parents were killed, and she was orphaned, and much of her village was ravaged. Sisay was forced to live alone and began to learn how to manipulate the Weatherlight on her own, which she was successful for. But unfortunately, she did not learn very important things from her parents. Her parents knew to a degree about what was going on with Urza, with the legacy itself, with the Phyrexians. She didn't learn the true information. She only knew bits and pieces of legend. Some of the legends did imply that the Weatherlight itself was connected to the set of artifacts known as the Legacy. She knew that. So she knew she had to assemble the Legacy. And she knew this Legacy was a specialized set of artifacts that, when combined, could fight against this powerful creature known as the Lord of the Wastes and defeat it. The Lord of the Wastes is another name for Yawgmoth. But she didn't know this. She didn't know the true essence of the Phyrexians. So Sisay began to travel to learn about the Legacy, to discover it. Fortunately, very early on, she was captured by slavers from another country within Jamora, and ended up on a ship for them. This ship, though, fortunately for her, caught afoul of pirates. The pirates liberated her. They tormented and killed the captors who had enslaved people on the ship. Sisay herself had impressed the captain of the ship and basically was allowed to remain on board as the cabin boy. So Sisay joined this crew and learned from them much about sailing until she herself became a full-fledged sailor. Upon this, she returned to the Weatherlight and took her rightful place as captain of it, and began the journey, the true journey in essence, to find the Legacy. Unfortunately, this was interrupted by the Mirage Wars, which she would become a minor celebrity during this time. She helped spy on the enemy for the Zalthorans. That is her home nation. While on a mission to collect a powerful artifact to help in the war efforts, she received dream messages from Teferi, which led her to one of her most important crew members that she would ally with, Tangath the Minotaur, who would become her first mate. This also led her to help free Magnara, who would in the end stop the Mirage Wars. Along the way, though, she managed to continue to gather the rest of the crew, which we would know about. Squee the Goblin, Orm their healer, Hannah their navigator, many others. This did include also Gerrard, who turns out is the true master, the true owner of the Legacy, the true heir to it. In fact, many of these that she gathered were connected to the Bloodline project. It's hard to say if by chance or just by fate. Now, a mysterious figure known as Stark came to her. Stark had information about pieces of the Legacy, and Sisay was all but willing to take up this information and go and begin to gather the Legacy. It turns out that Stark was an agent of the Phyrexians. He had been connected to Wrath, the demi-plane which was being used to invade Dominaria, basically the staging ground for the big invasion. Once she had assembled pretty much all of the Legacy, she was kidnapped along with those large portions of Legacy. Tangath discovered this. The Weatherlight was still there, but the Legacy and Sisay were gone, and he knew they were kidnapped. He sought out Gerrard. Gerrard had left the ship after his friend Rofelus had died, basically trying to find the Legacy. He wanted nothing to do with the Legacy. but a friend. A friend in trouble he was willing to help out with. And so he took up the mantle of effectively captain and helped lead them to the demi-plane of Wrath. There, they confronted Volrath, basically the completed form, the Phyrexian completed form of Gerrard's stepbrother, Vul. They managed to rescue Sisay, rescue the legacy, and escape. Now, unfortunately, they did not escape back to Dominaria. They headed to Mercadia, another plane where they crash-landed. There, they were basically required to work with this corrupt government until they managed to gather the materials in order to prepare the Weatherlight. But also in doing this, they did spark the revolution there and help the revolution to start, to fight against this corruption and basically free Mercadia. The Weatherlight returned to Dominaria, but there was no time to rest. The invasion basically had just begun. The Weatherlight was on the front lines, battling against Phyrexian ships, trying to defend it, continuing to fight. It wasn't until the primeval dragons arose, which were fighting both Dominarian forces and Phyrexian forces, that the Weatherlight itself was downed and crashed. All during this time, though, Karn was regaining his memory. Karn realized that he was both a member of the Legacy and a member of the crew of the Weatherlight. He was able to manipulate the artifacts of the Legacy to repair the Weatherlight, to complete it, to put it to its greatest form, and basically bond with it himself. The Weatherlight was able to rejoin the battle. Unfortunately now, though, Yawgmoth himself descended upon Dominaria. He came in this form of this death cloud that would just murder everything in its wake. The crew itself attempted to defeat him using the process they knew about. They channeled the energy that had been stored within the Null Moon, a powerful burst of white mana, and tore into Yawgmoth, hoping to defeat him. Yawgmoth was severely injured, but survived. He now prepared to descend upon the Weatherlight. Gerrard, the remains of Urza, and Karn merged themselves together with the Legacy. They activated the ship, using its full power, and they wiped out Yawgmoth from existence. Cleared him from Dominaria. The prior process of this devastated the demi-plane of Phyrexia. The invasion was stopped. But the Weatherlight was now dead, its magic drained, and so it crashed into the seas near Urborg, the first location of Yawgmoth's invasion. Sisay set adrift. Now, Gerrard, Urza, had died. A year later, Karn returns, now a Planeswalker, almost taking the place of Urza. He returns to the remembrance of those lost, and especially his friends from the Weatherlight who had lost their lives along the way. He takes Orm, the healer, back to Mercadia, where she can now be with her lover, who was the leader of the revolutionaries, and had their successful revolution. Now she can be with him. Sisay, on the other hand, well, she receives a gift from the remaining leaders of Dominaria, a new skyship, which she names Victory. She boards Victory and takes with her some of the remaining crew members of the Weatherlight. Squee, the goblin cabin boy, and of course, Tangath, the Minotaur. The three of them and a few others set off to new adventures aboard the Victory, in a new world, free of the invasion. What truly happens to them, we don't know. The next time we visit Dominaria, it's nearly 100 years from there. And we only know that Sisay lived to be about 80. That's all we know about her, and her death, and her end, and any adventures after that. Now, Sisay herself has been depicted in a single card. A pretty powerful card that allows you to search for legendary permanents. So she's great in a legend deck. But that's it for today. I introduced you to an important part of the entire Weatherlight saga, of both the Mirage block and Invasion, Sisay. She was the true captain of the Weatherlight, not the inheritor of the Legacy like Gerrard was. But her presence drove the repair of the Legacy, seeking it out, allowed Dominaria to survive. Her kidnapping brought forth the existence of Wrath, and showed and brought Gerrard into the fray. He wanted no part of any of this, but he was drugged forward by her sheer presence. So the fact is that she kind of got messed up a lot during these adventures. Means that she was almost a call to arms. And even then, she herself was a powerful warrior. She led the Weatherlight into battle against the Phyrexians. She was there at the end of the ship. She went down with it, but survived. And her history was shown as a powerful sailor, with many dark things in it, but always hope and light and pushing forward to accomplish an important quest set upon by her very bloodline. And in the end, as the Victory sailed off, a new skyship into the sunset, with her remaining friends on board, memories of those lost, of those in new locations, of those that they may never see again, but those that are still within their hearts. I'm sure they had plenty of other great adventures deep into the future. But if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It's just for the channel, the empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon, link in the description below. There's some great rewards there. It helps to grow and improve the channel. If you want to check out some other great Magic the Gathering content, I can recommend a couple other YouTube channels, my friends of the multiverse. Card Bazaar, They Said, We Said, and Tasty Snackies. They do some great work themselves. I always recommend them. They do some cool things that you might want to check out yourselves. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.